The evening was soft and blue. Streetlights blinked on one by one as Nadia Cole drove home from a long day. Her car was clean, the seat set just right, and a simple song played low on the radio. She did not rush. She had eaten a small meal at her desk and drank water before leaving the office. Her bag sat on the passenger seat, neatly closed. The city felt calm after sunset, and the road ahead was steady. She checked her mirrors, used her signal early, and kept an easy distance from the car in front. Everything about her driving was gentle and clear. Nadia liked order. She worked in a place that asked for careful thinking, and she carried that same care into her daily life. She kept her papers up to date, her insurance card in a labeled sleeve, and her driver's license, ready in the same pocket of her wallet. She believed in preparation, not panic. It was one reason people trusted her. At work, she stayed calm even when details were messy. She listened well and spoke plainly. Tonight, she wanted only one thing: to get home, take off her shoes, and rest her eyes. She moved through a part of the city she knew well. Small stores with warm lights stood at the corners. A bus rolled past a stop, and two friends waved to each other across the street. A child's bicycle leaned against a fence. Little signs of everyday life surrounded her, and these signs always made her feel steady. She lifted her foot slightly to slow near a yellow light and then continued on. Her mind wandered to her mother's voice. "Drive like you can explain every move." It was a habit she kept, and it made her feel safe. Then she saw the flash of blue in her mirror. It was far at first, then closer. She checked her speed. She had not been speeding. She checked her lane position. She was centered. She turned on her signal and eased into the right lane, looking for a safe place to stop. There was a well-lit area ahead near a small cafe. She pulled over carefully, put the car in park, and took a slow breath. Her heart beat a little faster, but her hands were steady. She lowered her window and turned on the dome light so everything was visible. Nadia placed both hands at the top of the wheel where they could be seen. She did not reach for anything. She did not look around fast. She kept her face calm and her voice ready. She knew these steps not because she was scared, but because caution can prevent confusion. She could smell the faint scent of coffee from the cafe. Somewhere, a dog barked once and then fell quiet. The flashing lights painted the side mirror. Cars passed slowly, curious but not stopping. Nadia waited for the officer to approach, counting her breaths in her head. 1, 2, 3. Footsteps came up along the driver's side. A strong flashlight beam brushed across the window, then lowered. The officer leaned slightly toward the open window. "Good evening," he said. His voice was even, almost flat. "License and registration." Nadia spoke softly. "Good evening, officer. May I ask the reason for the stop?" The officer paused and then said something vague about her attitude when she merged. Nadia did not argue. She kept her voice smooth. "I understand. I have my documents ready. I will move my right hand to my wallet now." She moved slowly, took out her license, and then reached for the glove box. Her registration and insurance card were exactly where she kept them, paper clipped together, facing the correct way. She handed everything over and kept her hands back on the wheel. The officer looked from the cards to her face and back to the cards. His eyes did not rest long on any one thing. He asked where she was coming from and where she was going. His flashlight tapped lightly against the door frame. "Home from work," she said in a calm, clear tone. "I live about 15 minutes from here." He said something about keeping a better attitude on the road. Nadia nodded once. "Understood." Inside, Nadia stayed steady. Her training told her to keep things simple. Give short answers. Ask for clarity, but do not spark conflict. She paid attention to details. She noted the time on her dash clock. She quietly read the officer's name tag. She saw the numbers on the patrol car in her side mirror. She noticed the street sign across the way, the cafe's name, the color of the awning, even the burn mark on the curb. If she needed to remember later, she would remember well. She did not need to write anything down. She stored details the way a careful mind does. The officer told her to wait and walked back to his car with her documents. Nadia used the pause to breathe and to center herself. She looked straight ahead. She did not pick up her phone. She did not move her hands from the wheel. A bus hummed by, and the cafe door swung open for a customer. She watched the reflection of the patrol car in her side mirror. She could see the officer's shapeshift and the glow of a screen inside the patrol car. Minutes can feel long in a paused moment, but Nadia had patience. She had learned that patience can keep small moments from turning big. Her thoughts moved gently to her work. In the past 2 months, she had reviewed files about traffic stops in this part of the city. She had read statements, looked at logs, and compared words used in different reports. In some records, the reasons for stops were unclear. In some, the notes were short and repeated the same phrases. She had a calm method. Collect facts, verify facts, and then see the full picture. She did not jump to conclusions. She did not ignore patterns. When a pattern appeared, she made sure it was real. She believed in fair process because fair process helps everyone. It was a quiet twist of fate that tonight's stop involved the very officer whose reports she had seen before. She did not show anything on her face when she realized this. She did not change her tone. She did not mention her job. She was just a driver who had been stopped, following every rule she knew. Still, the thought sat there in her mind like a small light. This is the same name, the same patrol area, the same phrases she had read. But she did not let that light grow into a flame. She kept her focus on the present moment. The officer returned. He held her documents and a small pad. "Everything checks out," he said. "Consider this a warning. Watch your attitude when you merge." His words were simple, yet they did not tie to a clear road rule. Nadia kept her voice even. "Thank you, officer. For my understanding, which specific action should I correct next time?" He paused for a tiny second, then repeated the word he had used before. He did not add details about the lane, the speed, the signal timing, or a broken light. He handed back her cards. "You're free to go." Nadia accepted her documents, placed them carefully back in their places, and kept her hands still for one more breath. She said, "Have a safe night." The officer did not answer that part. He stepped away from the window and moved back toward his patrol car. The blue lights still washed the pavement. Nadia waited until he was clearly behind her, then put on her signal, checked her mirrors twice, and merged back into the lane. Her car moved forward at a calm speed. The street opened ahead again, the same as before, yet now marked in her mind by a new detail, a point in time she would remember. As she drove, she let her shoulders drop. She was not angry. She was not shaken. She was focused. In her head, she filed the stop like she filed any important moment, with a date, a time, and the words that were used. She did not need to write yet. She would do that at home, where her notes lived. She would note how she pulled over at a well-lit place, how she asked for the reason, how the reason given did not describe a clear road risk. She would write plainly, without big language, the same way she spoke. She turned left at a familiar corner and passed the small park with the tall tree. The night felt wide and quiet again. She could still hear the gentle song on the radio, now a different track. She thought of the people she had met during past weeks, drivers who spoke softly to her and asked if their voices would be believed. She had told each person the same thing. Facts matter. Details matter. We do this step by step. She lived by those words. She would continue to live by them. It was the only way she knew to build something steady, not just for one person, but for everyone. Unknown to the officer, The driver he had stopped with a vague phrase and a watchful tone was the same person now studying his cases with a careful eye. She did not plan to surprise him. She did not plan to embarrass him. She planned to follow the path she always followed. Gather facts, match them to rules, and let the truth stand in clear light. If the facts were strong, they would speak for themselves. For now, she drove on, steady as a metronome, carrying the evening with her like a neat folder she would open at the right time. The night air felt cooler when Nadia parked near her building. She sat for a moment with the engine off and the dome light on. She took out a small notebook she kept in her bag. The notebook had a simple rule: 1 page per event, short lines, clear times. She wrote the date, the exact location, and the time she first saw the patrol lights. She wrote the name on the officer's tag, the number on the car door, and the words he used. She wrote how she pulled over at a well-lit spot, kept both hands on the wheel, and asked for a clear reason. She wrote that the reason given did not match a simple rule of the road. She kept the lines neat. She did not add feelings. She only wrote facts. When she finished the page, she drew a small square in the corner to mark it as complete. Inside her apartment, she set her bag on the table and opened her work laptop. She did not connect to any outside network. She opened a secure note file used for early thoughts and reminders. She typed the same facts she had written by hand. Then she opened a digital folder she had created weeks ago. The folder name was A Date Range. Inside it, she had subfolders for reports, videos, radio logs, and maps. She saved her notes with a clear title that began with the timestamp. She washed her face and made tea. Then she stood by the window and looked out at the quiet street, thinking not about anger or worry, but about process and truth. The next morning, Nadia reached the office early. The building was simple and bright inside, with a steady hum of printers and soft steps in the hall. She greeted the guard at the entrance and went up the stairs instead of taking the elevator. Her desk was neat: a laptop stand, 2 pens, a water bottle, and a small plant with a green ribbon. She signed into the secure case system and opened. The file that tracked stops in this part of the city. A chart appeared: dates in one column, reasons in another, and notes about camera status in a third. She scrolled slowly. The same officer's name came up across weeks. The reasons were short and repeated: attitude, manner, tone. The camera status often said not available or malfunction. She placed her finger on the screen near those words and held it there, as if to weigh them. Her colleague, Maya, stopped by with a gentle knock on the open door. "Early start?" Maya asked. Nadia smiled. "Just organizing," she said. She did not describe her stop yet. She wanted to verify first. "I need the maintenance logs for patrol cameras for the last quarter," Nadia said. "And the policy sheet on when cameras must be on." Maya nodded. "I'll request the logs. Policy is in the shared folder." After she left, Nadia opened the policy sheet and read the lines again. The language was clear: turn on the camera during any stop and leave it on until the stop ends. It also described automatic triggers connected to the patrol car lights. She highlighted a line about exceptions. It said exceptions were rare and had to be reported at once. At mid-morning, Nadia went back to the intersection where she had been stopped. Daylight made it look different, but the key parts were the same. The cafe had a small sticker near the door that said security camera. Active. She stepped inside and greeted the owner, a calm man with silver hair and kind eyes. He said his name was Mr. Patel. "Do you keep recordings?" Nadia asked politely, showing her identification and explaining she was reviewing traffic stops in the area. He nodded and led her to a small screen behind the counter. "We keep 7 days," he said. "If it was last night, you may see it." They scrolled to the time she wrote in her notebook. The video showed the street, her car pulling over, the patrol car behind it, and her steady movements inside the frame of light. The video did not record sound, but it recorded enough to show that she used her signal, pulled in safely, and kept her hands where they could be seen. It also showed the patrol car, the officer's approach, and the timing of events. Nadia asked if she could get a copy. Mr. Patel agreed to share it with a signed request. She thanked him and bought a tea to go, not only out of courtesy, but because she liked to support people who helped bring clarity. Outside, a city bus stopped at the corner and opened its doors. It made her think of the bus she had seen pass during the stop. Buses often had cameras, too. She made a note to contact the transit office and ask for any relevant footage. Back at her desk, she wrote a short request to the transit authority for the bus camera recording from that route and time. She also wrote to her colleague who handled radio channels. She asked for the dispatch logs and any recorded radio traffic for a 15-minute window around the stop. She included location coordinates and the patrol car number. She attached the policy sheet lines about camera activation to her internal notes. Then she opened a map file. It showed dots where stops had occurred over the past 2 months. She filtered for this officer's name. The dots formed a narrow chain along certain blocks, clustered around the same corners. It was not proof of anything by itself, but it was a pattern. She drew a light circle around those clusters and saved the image. Nadia believed in balance. For every detail that raised concern, she looked for facts that might explain it. She checked if there had been any alerts in the area that night. She reviewed a list of 911 calls that might have caused extra caution, such as reckless driving, a missing vehicle, or a specific suspect. The list showed normal activity for the hour: a noise complaint, a flat tire request, and a lost dog report. She checked weather. The roads were dry. She checked for a large event nearby. None appeared. She wrote a note. No unusual risk factors. Found. She kept her tone neutral in every line she wrote. The goal was not to prove herself right. The goal was to understand the truth. By early afternoon, the maintenance logs for body-worn cameras arrived. They were simple tables with dates, officer IDs, and notes about issues. She searched for the officer's ID. There were several battery-low entries over the last month, often during evening shifts, with a note to charge overnight. She compared those dates to her chart of stops. Many lined up with camera not available. She did not jump to a conclusion. She wrote, possible battery pattern, needs, independent check. She then asked for the docking station logs that showed when devices were charged. If a device was charged at the start of a shift, consistent low battery in the first hours would be unusual. Near the end of the day, the bus camera footage arrived. Nadia watched it in a quiet conference room. The bus drove past at the moment of the stop. The camera angle caught the edge of her car, the patrol lights, and the officer returning to his car with her documents. The timestamps matched her notes. Nothing in the video suggested a dangerous lane change or speeding. She paused the frame and took a still image with the timestamp visible. She saved it in the Videos folder with a clear name. Then she closed her eyes for a second, not to rest, but to listen to her inner checklist. She had outside video, a map of patterns, policy text, and maintenance logs. Next, she needed witness accounts and radio audio. The radio logs came through at sunset. In the recording, the officer called in a plate check and a location. The tone was calm. No urgent codes were used. The call did not mention a clear traffic risk. It ended with a note that a warning was given. Nadia listened twice. She wrote down the words used. Then she called Maya. I'll need prior stop reports from the same officer where attitude or tone was listed, she said. Maya agreed and added, there were a few community complaints in that period. I'll pull them with identifying details masked for privacy. Nadia thanked her, then opened her case file and began a careful cross-check. Over the next 2 days, Nadia reached out to people who had given permission to be contacted about past stops. She spoke with a teacher. who had been pulled over near the same cafe. The teacher said she signaled early and moved into the lane with care. She was told her manner was off. She felt confused and left with a warning. Nadia listened, asked to verify the date and time, and then asked permission to use the account with identifying details removed. The teacher agreed. Nadia thanked her and repeated that the review was about policy and fairness. The next call was to a delivery driver who had been stopped near the park. He described a similar experience. Again, Nadia took careful notes, asked for permission to use them, and offered to share the final public report when allowed. Each piece was simple on its own. Together, they began to form a clear picture. Repeated stops with similar words, limited, camera coverage, and reasons that did not tie to specific road safety concerns. But Nadia knew that patterns must be shown, not suspected. She printed a small deck of slides with clean visuals, a timeline of stops, a map of locations, quotes from policy, short paraphrases from accounts with privacy respected, and still images from the cafe and bus videos. She kept the design plain. She used gray lines and black text. She added a page titled Alternative Explanations Considered, listing the checks she had made for events, weather, and alerts. There was one last step before any meeting, a quiet visit to the department's office that handled equipment. Nadia asked to see the docking station logs for the officer's camera device. The technician, a friendly woman with a calm voice, showed her the records. The log showed the device was placed on the dock each night and showed a full charge at the start of most shifts. Sometimes a device can look full, but still dip fast if the battery is old, the technician said. We replay. The third morning began with a low, cool light over the city. Nadia reached the office early again. She carried a calm focus, the kind that makes time feel wide and steady. She placed her bag under the desk, took a sip of water, and opened the case file. The screen filled with the same elements she had built over days: dates, maps, short notes, and a folder of videos. She scrolled slowly, reading each line with fresh eyes. Simple steps, repeated carefully, build trust. That was her steady belief. Her first task was to test the equipment facts. She walked down to the technical unit and asked for event logs for the officer's body-worn camera. Event logs are simple, time-stamped records. Power on, power off, start, stop. The technician, the same calm woman from the day before, typed a request and brought up a screen that tracked the last 30 days. She turned the monitor so Nadia could see. These are the button presses and system triggers, the technician explained. The list showed that on several nights the camera powered on at the start of a shift, then recorded no trigger when the patrol lights were activated. Just below that, a few lines showed manual power down during the hour when stops took place. Does the camera record a reason when it's powered off? Nadia asked. The technician shook her head. No reason, just the time. Officers are trained to keep it on during stops. If a device fails, the policy is to report it at once. She printed the logs and signed the bottom to confirm they were complete. Nadia thanked her and carried the papers upstairs, holding them as neatly as a letter. She placed them next to her deck and added a slide with a simple line. Event logs show manual power actions during active patrol periods. She did not add a tone or a strong phrase. Facts were enough. Next, she wanted a comparison. Patterns can look strong, but they mean more when set beside a reasonable baseline. She arranged a brief ride-along with a different officer on another evening shift, with permission and notice. During the ride-along, she watched how that officer used the camera. The device was on, the patrol lights triggered a visible mark on the screen, and the officer spoke in clear, calm words when addressing drivers. Reasons were specific: a missing signal, a light out, a full stop not made at a sign. One driver received a warning with a short explanation and a note on the report. When the stop ended, the camera stayed on until the officer was fully back in the patrol car and the activity was finished. Nadia made no judgments. She simply wrote what she saw the way a camera would, clean, steady, without opinion. Back at her desk, she added those notes to a page titled Reference Practice. She listed the time, the steps, and the visible trigger on the device. She then placed a screenshot of the policy line beside it. The page looked like a mirror, what the rule said and what normal practice looked like when it was followed. That quiet page would help a busy room see the difference with only a glance. By afternoon, her colleague Maya arrived with a slim folder. "Here are summaries of community complaints anonymized," Maya said, setting the folder down. "I also flagged any report that used the words attitude, tone, or manner as the main reason for a stop." Nadia opened the folder and read the short summaries. Each one kept private details out, focusing on time and conduct. Several described polite drivers who asked for a reason and received a warning without a specific safety note. She compared the summaries to the officers' reports. The wording matched more often than chance. She added a slide with 3 short quotes from different dates, labeled only by month and hour, not by name. She looked at the slide and then softened it further, making the font plain and the spacing generous. She did not want to overwhelm the eye. She wanted clarity to breathe. She then reached out to the city's transit office to confirm bus camera procedures. A staff member explained that the bus cameras record continuously and keep timestamps accurate to the second. The clip from the night of her stop showed the patrol car lights reflected on glass, and the officer walking back at a pace that matched a standard interaction. Nothing suggested a safety risk had triggered urgency. Nadia wrote a single sentence. In her notes, bus camera timestamps align with cafe camera and radio log. Where 3 independent clocks agree, trust rises. Still, she searched for alternative explanations. She checked if the officer's patrol area had a special assignment for that period, such as looking for a vehicle that matched a description. She read internal notices for the week. One notice discussed general caution in a neighboring district, but not on the blocks in her map. She added a gentle line to the alternative explanations slide. No special assignment in listed area at relevant hours. In the evening, she received an unexpected message from the transit office. A bicycle courier who often passed the cafe had a small camera mounted on his handlebars. The office had forwarded a public note she had placed, asking for any video from that corner on the relevant night. The courier had recorded a short clip as he rolled by. The clip showed Nadia's car easing into the well-lit spot with her signal on. It showed the patrol car behind her and captured a clear view of the gap around her vehicle. The street was not crowded. The clip was only 10 seconds, but it was strong. She thanked the courier, obtained consent to use the clip with his face and identifying details masked, and saved the file in a folder called Third-Party Video. She did not add a new slide yet. She wanted to review it twice more in the morning light. The next day, she met with her supervisor, Mr. Alvarez, in a small room with a whiteboard and a round table. She walked him through the deck in a calm, even voice. She showed the map with dots, the policy lines, the camera event logs, the bus and cafe images, and the simple charts. He listened without interrupting. When she finished, he asked 3 questions. "Did you check for any training gaps?" She answered that she had pulled the officer's training record. It showed he completed the required courses on camera use and traffic policy in the last year. "Did you include a fair comparator?" She showed the ride-along notes. "Did you disclose that one of the stops was yours?" She paused and nodded. "I will. I have a short disclosure memo ready, and I recommend that another agent review that specific segment to avoid any question of bias." Mr. Alvarez looked at her for a second and then said, "Good. Add that. We'll include an independent reviewer for that stop." Nadia returned to her desk and wrote the disclosure. It was a short page with clear lines, date, location, and a statement that she was the driver in one recorded stop. It recommended that another agent verify the facts for that one entry. She signed it and placed it at the front of the deck. Transparency builds trust, she thought. She felt calm. She had not tried to keep her role quiet. She had only waited to present it properly, with all facts in place and with a plan to keep the process fair. By midday, a meeting date was set with the department's professional standards unit. Also attending would be a legal advisor from the city and a representative from the officer's side. The time was 2 days away, late afternoon, to allow all parties to review the documents. Nadia sent the deck securely to the list and included a short message. Please find attached a summary of findings to date with sources noted. Additional materials, full logs and videos, will be available in the meeting room. She kept her message short, polite, and neutral. She always did. In the quiet hours that followed, she checked the room setup. She requested a screen that could play the clips clearly and a speaker for any audio from the radio logs. She laid out printed copies of the deck with a simple table of contents and page numbers. She placed sticky flags on the policy pages to make them easy to find. She tested the cafe video, the bus still, and the bicycle clip. She lined up each file so that one keyframe appeared first, like a clean doorway into the scene. If the room was busy or tense, that first frame would help people settle their eyes. Maya stopped by in the late afternoon. "You ready?" she asked with a small smile. "Ready," Nadia said, returning the smile. Maya looked at the deck and nodded. "It's clear and calm," she said. "That helps everyone." Nadia thought about that. Calm is not soft. Calm is strong. Calm is a bridge that carries people across rough water. She felt grateful for a teammate who understood that. As the meeting day approached, one more piece arrived. A short email from the equipment unit. They had checked the patrol car's automatic trigger, which should send a signal to the camera when the car's lights go on. The trigger was tested and found to be working during the same week as several stops without recordings. The unit attached a brief test report. Date, time, trigger on, signal received. The report did not accuse. It simply showed that the system functioned as designed. Nadia added the report to her appendix and wrote a single sentence on the equipment slide. Trigger test passed during relevant period. That night, Nadia walked the long way home. She passed the park with the tall tree and the cafe with the silver-haired owner. Inside, Mr. Patel was wiping down the counter. She stepped in to thank him again for the recording and to buy a tea. "I hope it helps," he said gently. "It helps to have light," she replied, smiling in a small way. Outside, the air felt cool and fresh. She sat on a bench for a minute, listening to the low sounds of the street, and let her shoulders fall. She remembered something her mentor had told her early in her career. "Write it so a Patty." The meeting room felt cool and bright at 3 in the afternoon. The table was round. The screen on the wall showed the first page of the deck, simple black text on a white background. Nadia stood near the screen with a small remote in her hand. Her supervisor, Mr. Alvarez, sat to her left with a notebook. Across the table sat the head of professional standards, a calm woman named Captain Lee. Next to her sat a city legal advisor, Ms. Rivera, with a pen resting across a legal pad. On the other side, the officer's representative, Mr. Dalton, had a neat folder and a steady gaze. The officer, Blake, took the seat beside him. His uniform was pressed. His eyes moved from the screen to the table and back again. Nadia began, with a short, clear voice. She thanked everyone for their time. She explained the goal of the meeting, to review facts about patrol stops in a certain area over a defined period. She pointed to the agenda on the first slide: sources, policy, patterns, equipment, and next steps. She kept her words simple. She spoke as if she were guiding someone on a careful walk, step by step with a handrail. She then paused and said she had a brief disclosure. She stated that one of the stops in the set involved her as the driver. Because of this, She asked that another agent review that single entry for fairness. She slid a single-page memo across the table. Captain Lee read it, nodded once, and placed it on top of her folder. The second slide showed the policy lines. Nadia read the key parts out loud. Turn on the camera during a stop. Leave it on until the stop ends. Report any failure at once. The quiet room made each sentence feel strong. She did not add extra words. She did not add a tone. Facts stood on their own. She moved to the next slide. It was a simple timeline of dates and hours. Small circles marked each stop. A thin gray line connected them. On the right side, a column said, Camera Status. Many entries said, Not available. A second column said, Reason given. Several entries used the same short words. Attitude, tone, manner. She let the slide sit for 5 seconds so the eyes in the room could take it. Next, she showed the map. Light dots marked the corners near the cafe and park. The dots formed gentle clusters, not a scatter. She explained how she filtered for time, location, and officer ID. She moved on to the equipment slide. It had one sentence at the top. Trigger test passed during relevant period. Below it sat a small table from the equipment unit. Date, trigger on, signal received, no opinion, only lines. Then she brought up the camera event logs. The printout was clear. It showed power on at the start of shifts. It showed manual power down during the hours when stops took place. She stood quiet for a breath and let the lines be seen. Mr. Dalton leaned forward. Could this be a battery? Problem? He asked in a neutral tone. Nadia answered softly. The battery had been replaced 3 months earlier. Charging logs showed full charges at the start of shifts. The trigger test showed the car signal worked. She added that if a device failed, policy required a report right away. She then moved to a slide called Reference Practice. It showed notes from a ride-along with a different officer. Camera on. Patrol lights triggered a visible mark. Reasons for stops were specific. Camera stayed on until the activity ended. She spoke of this not as praise or blame, but as a baseline, the way someone might show a correct sample in a class. It was time for the videos. She clicked once. The cafe clip appeared. It showed a well-lit curb, a car pulling over with a signal on, and a patrol car stopping behind it. The clip had no sound, but the light and motion were clear. She clicked again. The bus still showed the patrol lights reflected in glass and the officer returning to his car with documents. A small clock at the bottom matched the time in her. Notes. She clicked a third time. The bicycle courier's short clip rolled. It showed the wide gap around the stopped car and the steady pace of the moment. When the clips ended, the room stayed quiet for a few seconds. Captain Lee spoke first. Thank you, she said. Let us review the radio audio next. Nadia played the short segment. The officer's voice called in a plate check and a location. No urgent code. The summary line said a warning was given. Nadia stopped the audio and looked at her notes. There was no mention of a specific road risk in that call, she said, keeping her tone even. She then opened a slide with 3 short quotes from anonymized community accounts. Each described a brief stop with similar words and a warning, without a clear safety reason. She reminded the room that identifying details had been removed and permissions obtained. Mr. Dalton cleared his throat. Sometimes demeanor creates concern, he said. Policy allows judgment. Nadia nodded. Judgment is part of the job, she said softly. Policy asks that judgment be paired with a specific reason and that the camera stay on. She did not look at the officer when she said it. She looked at the policy lines on the screen. She then brought up a slide titled Alternative Explanations Considered. It listed checks for weather, special alerts, and large events. Each line said, None found. She did not rush. She wanted the room to see that she had looked for other answers. Ms. Rivera spoke next. Her voice was gentle but exact. We should talk about training, she said. Was the officer trained on camera policy? Nadia showed the training record line. Course completed within the last year. Thank you, Ms. Rivera said, noting it down. Then she asked, were the exceptions used? Nadia shook her head. No exception reports were filed during the listed stops. The legal advisor wrote another line. The air in the room felt still, like a page before a signature. No one spoke for a moment. The screen glowed softly. At this point, Nadia took a step back from the screen. She put the remote down. I want to say something simple, she said. I respect the work of patrol. It is hard work. The facts I brought are not about blame. They are about patterns. When patterns do not meet policy, trust breaks. When trust breaks, it harms the public and it harms the officer. We all want a safe street. Clear rules help us get there. She let her words rest. They were plain. They did not point at a person's heart. They pointed at the rails that keep the train on the track. Officer Blake spoke for the first time. His tone was even. I make quick calls, he said. Sometimes cameras get in the way. He stopped there. Mr. Dalton placed a hand flat on the table. Captain Lee looked at the policy slide still on the screen and then at the equipment report. We will need to follow the policy, she said quietly. The camera is not optional during a stop. Her voice had no sharp edge. It simply carried the rule back into the center of the table, the way someone returns a tool to its box. Mr. Alvarez asked if there were any more materials to review. Nadia said there were full copies of the logs and longer clips available. She also said the single entry that involved her should be validated by another agent and that she would step back from that part to keep the process clean. Captain Lee nodded again. We appreciate the disclosure, she said. An independent reviewer will handle that entry. Ms. Rivera added that transparent steps would help with any public summary later. This was not a press moment, but good. Process prepares you for the day when light will come in from every side. They moved to questions. Mr. Dalton asked if any of the stops ended in a citation. Nadia answered that most ended with warnings. He asked if any driver had raised their voice. Nadia answered that the videos had no sound. Her notes did not show raised voices, and the radio audio did not record any urgent tone. She kept each answer short and tied to a source. When she did not know, she said, I do not have that detail, and wrote it down to check later. Clear limits build trust, too. The room came to a natural pause. Captain Lee closed her folder and folded her hands. Thank you, Agent Cole, she said. Here are my immediate steps. We will open a formal internal review. We will place the officer on leave during the review. We will request a full equipment audit for the camera and patrol car. We will also review training refreshers on camera use and stop documentation. She turned to Ms. Rivera. We will set timelines and coordinate with legal. Ms. Rivera agreed and added that an independent oversight body would be notified as required. Nadia listened without moving much. Her face stayed calm. She did not look relieved. She did not look pleased. She looked steady, the way she always did when a plan moved to the next phase. Mr. Dalton asked for the officer's right to respond in writing. Captain Lee agreed and set a date for that. She also asked for any additional materials that might help the review. Nadia said she would organize the appendix and deliver it by morning. Mr. Alvarez looked at Nadia and gave a small nod, not of victory but of thanks. As the meeting closed, Nadia gathered the printed decks and placed them in a neat stack. She ejected the small drive with the videos and clipped it to a labeled card. She wiped the whiteboard clean, leaving only the time of the meeting and the word completed. People stood and pushed in their chairs. The air in the room felt lighter, like a road after rain. No one raised a voice. No one rushed. They walked out in pairs, speaking in low tones about dates and steps. The screen went dark. In the hallway, the light from a high window fell across the floor in long, pale shapes. Nadia stood for a second and breathed. She felt the steady beat of simple work done well. She did not think about headlines. She did not think about praise. She thought about the cafe owner who had saved a clip on a small device. The next morning felt clear and bright, the kind of morning that makes people breathe a little easier. Nadia reached the office early with a tidy folder under her arm. The folder held the appendix she promised: full logs, clean screenshots, short transcripts, and a table that linked each fact to a source. She placed the folder on Mr. Alvarez's desk and sent a secure copy to Captain Lee and Ms. Rivera. Her note was short and plain. It said the materials matched the slides, that the disclosure about her own stop stood at the front, and that a separate agent would handle that one entry. She ended the note with a gentle line: "If any new facts appear, I will add them and mark the changes." Then she sat down, watered her small plant, and opened her notebook to a fresh page. The review had moved from light to action. Now action would need steady hands. By noon, a schedule took shape. The internal review team would interview the officer, review the stops, and audit the camera device. An independent oversight office would look at the same materials and confirm the process. The city legal advisor set dates for both. Nadia's role would be limited in the days ahead: answer questions about sources, provide clips on request, and step back from judgment. She liked that. Her work fit best at the start, when the facts were gathered and set on the table. Others would now test those facts against policy and practice. She cleaned her desk and made room in her mind for the slower part of the path. The first request came quickly. The review team wanted the original cafe recording in full, not just the short clip. Nadia went back to the cafe with a signed form. Mr. Patel greeted her with the same calm smile. He led her to the small screen and helped export the longer file. He even placed it on a fresh drive with a label so clear that anyone could find the date in seconds. Nadia thanked him and bought tea for the staff as a small, kind gesture. On the sidewalk, she paused, breathed in the quiet comfort of a familiar place, and thought about how everyday people add light to a process just by doing small, steady things. 2 days later, the equipment audit came back. The camera device passed basic tests. The car trigger passed again. The log showed normal charging. The audit did not judge motives or feelings. It only spoke to switches and signals. Nadia forwarded the audit to the review team and added a small note for clarity. She said the audit did not rule out unusual glitches, but it showed no ongoing failure. She kept her language careful. Her pen never pushed harder on the page when she wrote a line that might be read 100 times. Clear lines deserve gentle pressure. The review team also asked for more baseline examples. Nadia went on a second ride along with a different officer from another district. She watched the same steps: clear reason for a stop, calm words, camera on from start to end. At the end of one stop, the officer thanked the driver for safe seatbelt use and gave a quick reminder about a faded tail light. The driver nodded. The officer stepped away and the camera stayed on until the patrol car door closed. Nadia wrote only what she saw. On the ride back, the officer looked over and said, "Rules reduce guesswork." Nadia smiled a small smile. She liked that sentence. She wrote it down on her notepad and marked it with a tiny star. In the following week, the officer under review sent a written response. He said he used his judgment based on how drivers spoke or moved. He said the camera sometimes felt like a barrier to quick conversation. He added that he meant well and wanted safe streets. The review team read his response with the same calm eyes they used on every file. They placed his words next to policy, next to the event logs, next to the videos, and next to the training record. Side by side, the pieces began to settle into a clear shape. There had been many stops with repeated vague reasons. The camera had been off in too many key moments. The equipment that should have helped was working as designed. The pattern did not match the rule. The department met again, smaller this time, to discuss the next steps. Nadia sat in the back row with her notebook on her lap. She did not speak. She listened. Captain Lee summarized the findings in the same plain style Nadia used. She said the review showed repeated stops without specific safety reasons and repeated camera gaps. She recommended a period of suspension, required training, before any return to patrol, and a reassignment with close supervision. She also recommended department-wide steps, an automatic camera policy tied to the patrol car lights and to the door opening, a weekly audit of camera activations, a short template for clear reasons on every stop, and a reminder that exceptions must be rare and reported at once. Ms. Rivera added a plan for a public summary that protected privacy while explaining policy and changes. Mr. Alvarez agreed to share sources, on request, with oversight. No one raised a voice. The room felt like a well-balanced scale. Every word fell and found its place. After the meeting, Nadia walked to the window and watched people crossing the street below. She thought about how trust returns. It does not rush back like a wave. It grows like a plant in good soil, watered every day. She wrote the word watering in her notebook and drew a tiny leaf next to it. Then she built a short list titled Ways to Water Trust. She wrote, share rules in plain language, show how tools work, invite people to ask questions, thank community members who help, and publish small wins, not just big ones. She planned to offer the list to the team that would write the public summary. Simple lists can help busy writers keep their tone steady and their aim true. A week later, the department held a community listening session at the library near the cafe. Chairs formed a circle. People came in clusters of 2 and 3. Some had questions, some had stories, some simply wanted to see if the room was honest. Captain Lee explained the camera changes and the new stop template in simple language. She showed a training sample, the kind where an instructor and a patrol officer practice a stop with a clear reason. Nadia sat with Maya at the side and took notes. A teacher spoke softly about feeling small during a stop. A delivery driver said he just wanted to know the rule he had missed. An older neighbor asked if a driver could see their own video if they requested it. The answer was yes, through a standard process. The room did not clap. It breathed. Trust does not show with noise. It shows with slower shoulders and steadier eyes. Outside the library, Nadia saw the bicycle courier who had shared his clip. He had leaned his bike against a tree and was watching the sky. She walked over to say thank you again. He shrugged with a shy smile. I was there, he said. Seemed right to send it. She asked about his routes and wished him safe rides. As he pedaled away, she felt a quiet warmth. Many small choices make a city strong. She would remember that on days when the work felt slow. Back at the office, Nadia helped draft the public summary. She kept the words simple and the sentences short. The summary explained the review, the policy, what changed, and how people could ask questions. It did not point fingers. It pointed to rules and steps. It thanked the community for sharing videos and stories. It promised a 6-month check-in. On camera use and stop documentation, it gave an email and a phone number for questions. When the summary was posted, Mr. Patel cut out the small notice from the city website and taped it to a corner of his cafe window, next to the security camera sticker. People read it while they waited for tea. The officer under review began his training period. He attended sessions on policy, on reasons for stops linked to safety, and on respectful words. He sat with a coach and watched sample clips, including examples of good practice. He learned the new automatic camera steps and the audit plan. At the end of the training week, he met with Captain Lee to discuss reassignment. He did not argue. He also did not show joy. He showed a quiet acceptance that comes when a person sees the line and knows they have to step back onto it. Nadia saw the meeting summary later. It was brief and clear. He would serve his suspension, finish training, and work under close supervision if he returned to patrol. If not, there were non-patrol roles that needed careful people. The door was not closed. It was guided. Months passed. The weekly camera, Audits showed high activation rates across shifts. The new stop template led to reports that named specific reasons like speed, lights, and signals. Complaints about unclear stops went down. Not to zero, because no system is perfect, but down in a steady line that made people breathe a little easier. The Oversight Office sent a short letter that said the review process had been fair and the changes were sensible. The letter used calm words like complete and consistent. It landed on Nadia's desk with a small sound, the sound of something that will sit well in a file for years. On a quiet afternoon, Nadia walked to the cafe and ordered tea. Mr. Patel handed her the cup with a smile. He pointed to a poster near the counter. It showed a simple guide to stops in plain language, reasons, rights, and how to ask for video. "People read this," he said. "They ask better questions now." Nadia nodded, warm inside. Good tools help both sides. She sat by the window and watched a bus roll past. She thought of the bus still that had anchored a timeline. She thought of the bicycle clip that had filled a missing angle. She thought of the gentle ride-alongs that had shown quiet good practice. She felt grateful for all the steady lamps. On her way back, she passed the park with the tall tree. Children played on the grass, a fath.